more battle mage type look, doesn't matter if you wear cloth, you can still transmog it to look like that dark runic mail and show that off. So now, I just mentioned that we are inviting players to journey through Azeroth once again, to start off with these allied races at level 20 and explore. Now, if you've done something like that recently, you've probably noticed the experience is kind of rough around the edges. Now, the content, the world, the stories, those hold up. Those are great. There's humor, there's life there. But the pacing of the experience is all off. If you're trying to play through, let's say, Hillsbrad, you'll quickly find that about halfway through the zone, a lot of the quests in your log are turning green or even gray. On the one hand, all the mechanics of the game are telling you to get out of there, to move along for better rewards, more experience, a place where you belong, while the story is telling you to stay because you want to see what happens next. We want to solve that. Now, in Legion, during the level up experience, we introduced the concept of scaling zones, and that allowed players to pick and choose their way through that experience. So, you have it figured out. I don't even need to give this presentation. But no, you can see where this is going. So we are looking to take that tech and expand it to the entirety of World of Warcraft. Yeah, we are super excited about this too. There'll be a couple of little differences in how it plays out here versus how it did in Legion. So first off, we don't want Westfall to scale all the way up to, let's say, level 110. So within these regions, there are level ranges with minimums and maximum levels. For two reasons. If you are a brand new undead, you're a Forsaken starting off in Tirisfal Glades, we think it's important that when you look eastward towards the Plaguelands, there's a little bit of terror there. That's a scary, dangerous place. You're not strong enough to go there. And if you try, Welcome Bear will come out and hug you, and then you'll be back at your graveyard. And that's how it works. On the other hand, if you're a seasoned adventurer returning from a campaign in Northrend, and you come back to Elwyn Forest and find that the wolves and the bandits there are now still an even match for you, that kind of undermines your progression. So we're thinking about a structure more like, imagine Westfall scales from 10 to 60, imagine Burning Steppes scales from 40 to 60. You're never going to out-level the zone while you're in it, but there's still some sense of progression, and once you've moved past the entire expansion, you do feel like you have surpassed it and you are more powerful. Now, speaking of expansions, we'd also like to take a step back from just zone choice and think about how you navigate expansions in the course of leveling up. So if you've leveled alts recently, you know the drill. You hit 58, you go to Hellfire Peninsula, you maybe do a zone and a half or so, depending on how many dungeons you're doing. Then it's off to Northrend. So if you've leveled alts recently, you know the drill. You hit 58. What if you go to Hellfire Peninsula, maybe do a zone and a half or so, depending on how many dungeons you're doing. Scaled all the way from 60 to 80. Off to Northrend. So if you've leveled alts recently, you know the drill. You hit 58. What if you go to Hellfire Peninsula, maybe do a zone and a half or so, depending on how many dungeons you're doing. Scaled all the way from 60 to 80. Off to Northrend. So if you've leveled alts recently, you know the drill. You hit 58. What if you go to Hellfire Peninsula, maybe do a zone and a half or so.
Dobra, ale 2R chyba miał być.
The point is having the experience that you want to have as you're leveling through WoW. And yes, this applies to dungeons, it applies to along the way. So yeah, it's awesome to hear the excitement. We are every bit as excited about this. And because it's something that really it's not really an expansion feature, it's just a basic improvement to the game. We want to get this in your hands sooner. So, you may have noticed the patch that just went live was 7.3.2. That was a small infrastructure thing. We have a proper 7.3.5 around the corner. It'll be coming to PTR in just a few weeks, and you will be able to see the beginnings of many of these improvements there. We can't wait to hear your feedback. We want to get this in your hands ASAP. All right, now, an all-new feature. Wasn't mentioned in the features trailer. So, the battle for Azeroth is a battle between the Alliance and Horde for control of our world. But it's also a battle in which we will all be asked to stand up
On
to
dla
safeguard
nich, dla
our
głuchych
world.
jest.
We will need to fight for its survival. And in the aftermath of the Legion's attack, our world is actually direly wounded. And Magni, speaker for Azeroth, speaker for her world soul, will reach out to us as some of her greatest champions and summon us, where we will commune with the world soul at the very beginning of our journey, and we will receive a gift.
To jest...
A gift from Azeroth herself.
na tecie, to
A,
będę
na
An
YouTubie?
artifact quality medallion called the Heart of Azeroth.
A ty streamujesz
Now,
nawet.
your artifact weapons that you currently wield, those will be consigned to history. They will go out in, they will receive a proper send-off. That story has yet to be told, but we'll get there. But your companion in your journeys throughout the battle for Azeroth will be this medallion known as the Heart of Azeroth.
Yay!
And as
Oh, to jest ten
Azeroth
artefakt,
herself
tak?
suffers, as she bleeds, her life essence actually seeps out throughout the world. It's incredibly powerful. It's a substance known as Azerite. And the unique property of this medallion is that when you encounter Azerite, when you come across the world, a portion of that incredible power absorbed, reconstituted, it's a substance into this medallion, into this Heart of Azeroth. Now, unlike the artifact weapons that you wielded in Legion, this artifact isn't something you're going to customize, doesn't have a huge trait tree to it. But what it does do is it serves as an incredibly potent power source that will unlock latent properties in many of the pieces of armor that you're going to come across and acquire throughout your journeys. So we're going to talk a lot more about this system in detail right back here at 4 o'clock in our gameplay and systems deep dive. But let me give you a quick overview, and then Russ Peterson and others on the team will dive much more deeply at that point. So this is some early UI concept art helmet. And these concentric circles each reflect tiers of powers, where you can choose one tier from each ring, one power from each ring. And your ability to access these tiers, to unlock them, will depend on how strong your amulet is. A stronger helmet
Jaki on
will
tam ma item
require
level?
more levels
185?
No.
Nice. Może będzie squish.
Microphone activated. Microphone muted.
Nie, bez sensu by było.
Microphone activated.
No ale przecież ten level nie jest w żaden sposób związany ze statami.
your amulet to equip, to access. But
Microphone
basically,
muted.
when we looked at the artifact system, there were a lot of elements of progression that worked very well. There were others, such as making hard choices between empowering one specs weapon versus another, that weren't so great. Or lots of the inventory clutter, things like that. We're looking to improve a lot of the aspects of the system. We also want to give ongoing options for choice and customization, rather than the artifact weapon system where you made tons of choices back in September when you were first filling out the tree, but it's been largely linear progression since then. In this world, each piece of armor, in a handful of slots that we select, we currently have 3 in mind, will offer a potential for customization and choice in a handcrafted way. These are not random traits, unlike the Netherlight Crucible. A helm is a helm is a helm, and you can pick what you want to suit your playstyle, to suit your needs as you progress through the world. Again, more about this later. Now, islands. Island expeditions. So many of you may have been wondering as you saw the feature trailer, when you saw, plunder uncharted isles, you're probably wondering to yourself, what is an island? Well, an island is a body of land surrounded on all sides by water. Moving on. Okay, so island expeditions. Island expeditions have you exploring uncharted isles scattered across the Great Sea. As we've mentioned, Alliance and Horde are locked in this stalemate, and they're seeking all the aid they can get. And there's all this unexplored land, with reports of Azerite, this substance I mentioned earlier, bubbling to the surface, as well as other unclaimed resources that could aid the war on the home front. And so Alliance and Horde are both sending their scouts out to scour the sea in search of these locations. And that will naturally lead to the Horde and Alliance coming into conflict in the New World over these small pieces of territory as they each try to claim these resources and take them back home to fuel the war. Now, what does that mean for you, the player? So island expeditions are 3-player cooperative gameplay, role agnostic, And they are a culmination and a reflection of lessons that we have learned throughout many years of developing content, many expansions worth of content development, ranging from Mists of Pandaria scenarios to scaling difficulty in Mythic Keystone dungeons, to randomization and variability of world quest spawning, and more. The theme here is one of exploration, of when you set out for an island, when you set out to an island, you don't know exactly what you're going to find, even if you've been to that island before. On one visit, a given island might be occupied by a settlement of trolls. Some are peaceful, and if you work with them and perform quests for them and solve their problems, they will give you some of their stores. Others are hostile. You might return another time and find that an ancient curse has wiped out life on the island, and undead are rising from their graves, and there are crypts for you to explore. Yet another time, a band of marauding Mogu might have come from Pandaria, taken over the island themselves, and set up shop. In all of these cases, you're going to find different friends, different enemies, different challenges, different events, different objectives. It's going to be one of the most variable, dynamic, replayable experiences we've ever offered in World of Warcraft. And to add another layer of dynamic gameplay here, again, as I mentioned, this is about Horde and Alliance skirmishing. And so, as you and your two allies roll up in a Horde ship, you will also find that shortly thereafter, 3 agents of the Alliance have arrived. And now, these are NPCs, but they are not any NPCs that you've ever seen before. They're not just looking to run up to you and punch you or cast fireballs at you. They're not like scripted boss encounters. They're a bit smarter than that. They'll behave strategically, they'll behave tactically, to complete objectives on the island and to thwart you as you try to do that as well. So even if you were on the exact same island, it still wouldn't play out the same way twice, because you're contending with variable opposing forces and having to deal with them the whole way through. And finally, if you want to match wits against 3 other players, you can do that too. And so these island expeditions can create an all-new type of PvPvE gameplay, where you are completing objectives, racing against enemy players to do so, and killing each other where it makes sense. All right, so on the other end of the spectrum, from island expeditions are small-scale skirmish in the New World. Warfronts tell the story of large-scale battles back on the home front. This is the battle for Azeroth between the Alliance and the Horde. This is what all the resources are for. This is what the alliances are for. This is the fight that we need to win. And what does large-scale battle mean for us? Well, we have so much fantasy to draw upon here, going all the way back to the real-time strategy roots of the franchise, going back to Warcraft 2, going back to Warcraft 3. Let me give you this hypothetical fact pattern. You are the commander of an Alliance expeditionary force tasked with landing in enemy-controlled lands. Secure an outpost, build it up, secure supply lines, protect them, build up your base, upgrade your buildings, train troops, and then lead them out into enemy territory, eventually sieging and overwhelming the enemy fortification and crushing them. I just described about 2/3 of all Warcraft campaign maps right there. Well, this is World of Warcraft, and let's put you in that experience. This isn't an RTS. This is you as a champion on the front lines, playing out that fantasy, living that experience. What does this mean? A Warfront is a 20-player cooperative raid as you join Alliance force, as you join a Horde force, to build up a base and take on a vast enemy entrenched, led by a powerful commander. And what you will do along the way is gather resources, build structures, decide whether you want a barracks or a stables collectively, upgrade those things, train troops, upgrade your troops, and lead those troops into battle to claim ultimate victory on behalf of your faction. Now, both Islands and Warfronts, I've just given you a quick high-level overview, but again, at 4 p.m., right back here in our Gameplay and Systems Deep Dive, we'll be talking a lot more about both of these features.
Już ci sprawdzę.
Okay. Now, the last couple of features I've talked about are primarily PvE features against large NPC armies. Battle for Azeroth is also going to be a great expansion for those of you who love PvP. So first off, we're adding a couple new arenas. We have a new arena coming in Kultiris, a new arena in Zandalar, capturing the aesthetics of those places, new environments within which you can pit your skills against one another. We also have a new battleground coming.
Dobra, to
Called the
teraz
Seething
bijemy się
Shore.
na Silitus.
Now, this battleground is located just off the coast of Silithus. For some reason, the Alliance and the Horde have decided that this barren stretch of desert is worth fighting over. I don't know why. There's nothing interesting going on in Silithus. But for some crazy reason, commanders of both factions decided to go fight over it. Weird. But as it turns out, for some reason, there's a lot of azurite that seems to be bubbling to the surface in Silithus, and this becomes a natural point of contention. So the way this plays out is as a new type of battleground that has dynamic control points. So imagine Arathi Basin if there were multiple possible flag locations and you never knew exactly where the control point was going to spawn. You had to adapt, you had to keep on the move. Here's a quick look at the layout from an internal sketch of this battleground. Each of those crystal nodes you see on the map is a potential point where an azurite fusion could occur. I think there's about 3 active at a given time. So as you're skirmishing over control of one, you might see the one has popped up on the other side of the map. You have to make a choice between how many people you're going to keep to try to contest the current one versus who's going to break off and try to claim the new one. Very fast-paced action, keep you on your toes. Really excited about this. And it's actually part of the story that we're telling. It's part of the events that will lead up
Microphone
to Battle for
activated.
Azeroth. So as such,
Microphone
we
muted.
also want to get this in your hands a bit before Battle for
Kiedy był
Azeroth
ostatni
itself.
standard, nie?
BGT.
So keep an eye on the PTR, and we want to get this coming your way soon. We're also going to continue to expand upon successful systems like the PvP brawls. We want to keep adding new ones. All of those things are here to stay. But that's instance PvP. I know there are many of you for whom world PvP is what you're all about. Whether it was 13 years ago ganking noobs in Stranglethorn Vale, making people switch to their mains to come get you, or just being a terror of World Quest areas today, it's the thing that you love. And you might feel like it hasn't been treated with the respect it deserves over the years. We agree. In a lot of ways, our PvP rule set for World PvP hasn't really changed since 2005. I guess we got rid of dishonorable kills about 10 years ago. So we should bring them back. No. But the way in which you play the game has changed tremendously. Over the years, server transfers opened up. People want to move around to play with their friends, to find new guilds. As it turns out, most people prefer to transfer to servers where their faction is already dominant, leading to more and more lopsided populations. Ease of travel around the world and power scaling have changed significantly. You could be trying to fight someone, and they could, CC you, get away, mount up, fly away. You never see them again. And much more recently, we have cross-realm gameplay. You might join a World Quest group in the pre-made group finder, and even though you're on a PvP server, you could join the group and suddenly find that you're surrounded by orange names because you just landed on a PvE realm, or vice versa. In a lot of ways, our rule set doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense for the way the game is right now and how people play the game. That's something we'd like to re-examine. And so I think there's 2 audiences that we're thinking of as we approach these changes. First off, there are likely many of you in the audience and watching at home who play on PvP servers today, but it's not really the gameplay you're looking for. You're there because that's where your friends wanted to be. That's where you ended up many years ago. You don't want to pay money for a server transfer. You don't want to leave your friends to change that. But you might be actually sitting here hearing about and thinking about this expansion we're talking about, where you'll be venturing into enemy-controlled lands with a bit of trepidation, thinking, that sounds actually pretty frustrating. On the other end of the spectrum, there are those of you who love World PvP and feel like, exactly, and feel like that's part of what makes World of Warcraft, and you want more of it. You want it to be more balanced, you want it to be more interesting, and you want it to occur more organically. We agree.
Ooh.
So the core of the changes we're looking at are actually, first and foremost, getting rid of this arbitrary division between PvP and PvE server rule sets, where you're locked in permanently on a given server, unless you transfer and leave your friends, you can't change that. We want to make this an individual toggle, unifying our servers into a single rule set. So when you are in Stormwind, you're in Orgrimmar, you're in Dalaran, you can choose whether you want to PvP flag, you want to opt into PvP, or not. And if you do, when you venture out into the world, you'll basically be on a PvP server, PvP rule set, with other people who also opted into that gameplay.
No tak,
If
ale
you don't
zobacz na
want to,
PvE serwerze, nie?
don't.
No.
What this lets us do,
Ale na tym
on the one
dodatku
hand,
dobrze
people who feel
zadziwił,
trapped on
bo
PvP servers
to była
now
masakra,
have
jak
an easy way out.
się szarżuje,
On the other
szarżuje,
hand,
to
we have a
zabili.
foundation upon which we can build a new generation of world PvP content. In the past, whenever internally we would think about and debate ideas for really cool world PvP stuff, it always ran into this roadblock of, well, what does that mean if you're on a PvE server? Does that just mean that half of the players of our game can't access that content meaningfully? And that always felt like a really large stumbling block. We could create all new content, whether it's bounty hunting quests or quests that send you to assassinate high-value targets in enemy territory, and encourage some of that organic conflict and reward it in a way that we never could before. Now, also, we realize you may be hearing this and thinking, well, why would I ever activate PvP just to go out and do my world quests? That feel like this is probably just going to be a bunch of people deathmatching across our zones, turning them into giant arenas. And that's not actually what world PvP is about, right? World PvP is that organic encounter that occurs. And so, in order to offset that inefficiency, we do want to offer some bonuses to something like experience gain, reputation gain, where it makes sense for questing with PvP mode enabled. The point of this is not to make this feel like the right or the only way to play if you don't like PvP, but rather to make it feel like it's worth your time if you do. Play the way you want to play. We'll have a lot more to talk about this in the future.
Całkiem spoko, fajnie,
But
fajnie
the
się
aim
to
of these
zapowiada.
changes is to build a foundation
Czekaj do końca.
upon which we can make World PvP great again.
O kurwa.
So changing gears a bit, dungeons. So we have 10 dungeons coming your way in Battle for Azeroth. Like zones, each faction will have separate level up dungeons associated with your continent, 4 in Kultiris, 4 in Zandalar, and then all 10 open up
Oh,
when you hit
fine.
map 5, and you gain some
Mody.
new motivations to go
Yeah,
into some of those places. On the system side, Mythic Keystones also here to stay. We want to provide better support for that system. We'll be designing more of our dungeons with full knowledge of what this system entails. We also want to provide UI improvements, so it's easier to form and find Mythic Keystone groups. If you're just looking for a 10, but you don't care what map it is, you should be able to search for that much more easily. Things like that. But refinements, just building upon a system that we've heard fantastic feedback from the community about. We love this as really making dungeons a continued part of the endgame. Let's talk about some specific dungeons. First off, Freehold. Freehold is located in Tiragard Sound. This is a wretched hive of scum and villainy. It is full of brigands and outlaws and cut purses, and you're going to have to go through this place if you want to put a stop to some of the problems that Kultiris is facing. Let's take a look at a video of Freehold. Yeah, that was an ogre with a shark for its arm, but... Okay. On the other continent, we have a dungeon known as Ataldazar. This is a tomb of ancient Zandalari kings located in the zone of Zuldazar. But there are dark forces present here. Trolls conducting horrible rituals,
Microphone activated.
dinosaurs, undead dinosaurs,
Microphone muted.
and all sorts of other threats. Let's take a look at a video for this dungeon.
Bo już widzę, jak tam wiara się będzie palić.
A to jest last boost, nie?
Nie, to jest...
Nie, to jest last.
Langweilig.
So both of those dungeons are also fully playable here on the show floor today for a total of 4 separate experiences. Alliance questing, Horde questing, Alliance dungeon, Horde dungeon. Grab 4 friends, make some new ones, check out the dungeons. We can't wait to hear your feedback. So other dungeons, as I mentioned, there's 10. I'm not going to talk about these in great detail, but these are scattered across the new lands. Special call out to the Shrine of the Storm. This is a dungeon in Stormsong Valley. If you want to see a bit more behind the scenes boss design for this dungeon, check out our boss design panel tomorrow afternoon on the Legendary stage, and you can see our encounter team design out one of the bosses in this dungeon live. The very bottom of this list is also a place that's not in Kultiris and not in Zandalar, Kazan. Now, this is a favorite location of ours we've wanted to revisit for some time. Knowing goblins, if you do, you might not be surprised to hear that once word spread of this substance known as azurite, they immediately set out to dig and dig and dig and see what they could uncover to control it for themselves. And who knows what else they found in the process. Should be a fun trip. Now, moving on to raids. Quickly here, since I don't want to go in too much detail into the nature of this raid, because it's hard to do without tremendously spoiling pretty much the whole story of Zandalar, and I don't want to deprive anybody of the experience of learning what happens as intended through data mine broadcast text. But this raid is the Titan facility Alex mentioned earlier, located in Nazmir, known as Uldir Halls of Control. It was once a Titan, effectively a laboratory, a quarantine facility, where they aimed to analyze and try to understand the nature of their ancient enemy, the Old Gods. It didn't go so well. This place has been shut down, sealed away for thousands of years until now. And we'll have to go in there to face off against the source of Zandalar's corruption. Inside, we'll see a new spin on some Titan architecture, as you see in a concept from one of our dungeon artists here. We'll be facing off against all manner of delightfully slimy foes. This little tiny person, sorry, tank. At least doesn't have ankles for you to look at. You'll be looking at a belly. Now, this is the first raid. This is the High Mall. This is the Emerald Nightmare of this expansion. Now, following this, and I'm going to say even less about this raid, it might have occurred to you when Alex was up here earlier talking about the dark threats from the sea plaguing Kultiris. Well, we know a couple of dark threats from the sea, don't we? There are some that we have heard a lot from in Legion. You know, some Tidestone-related stuff.
Wow!
And so, yes, before all is said and done in Battle for Azeroth,
Stażyntka z
we'll be
Harry'ego
facing
Pottera
off
czwartej
Queen
części.
Ashara, against Queen Ashara.
Jak trytm.
So lots more story to tell on that front. And yes. And so the stage is set for the Battle for Azeroth. We have Crimson Red continent in the west, Royal Blue in the east, and a vast expanse of ocean in between. We as champions of the Alliance and the Horde will set out to explore islands, battle on war fronts, and uncover mysteries that threaten to undermine the very world beneath our feet. Because at the end of the day, does it matter who wins the Battle for Azeroth if there's nothing left for the victor to claim? So thank you so much for coming out. Thank you so much for joining us for the beginning of this adventure.
Microphone activated.
Always a joy. We have so much more information to share over the course of the afternoon here at BlizzCon, starting in just a few hours right back here on this stage. And if you have any...
A na północ też będziesz miał go, czy nie? Dzisiaj o 4:00 przecież jest. Jeszcze o czymś jeszcze gadanie.